Lots of madness and drama ensued on the racetrack at the just concluded British Grand Prix. One would think it would come from the notorious Britain's bad weather. It delivered more, from a scary crash to a more dangerous protest. Welcome to F1 Freaks. We'll be discussing the protesters at the British Grand Prix and the various reaction to it. The British Grand Prix is a Grand Prix motor race organised in the United Kingdom by the Royal Automobile Club. First held in 1926, the British Grand Prix has been held annually since 1948 and has been a round of the FIA Formula One World Championship every year since 1950. This year's Grand Prix held up its part by being full of surprises. Being a renowned motor race and oldest in the Formula One World Championship calendar, the British Grand Prix witnessed the most interesting turn of events when there was a track invasion by protesters at the beginning of the 2022 Formula One British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Just seconds after lights out in the British GP, George Russell tried to battle back after a bad start, resulting in a fight for position with Pierre Gasly and Zhou Guanyu. Russell swerved to the left to find some room, clipping Gasly's AlphaTauri and making contact with Zhou's right rear wheel. It catapulted the Chinese star into the air, and he was sent flying off the tracks and into the barrier while upside down in a horrifying scene. Alfa Romeo have since confirmed he is okay, and the TV coverage has confirmed he was seen on a stretcher but moving in the aftermath. But incredibly, with all drivers involved seemingly okay, the crash has been considered a blessing in disguise. The protesters managed to get onto the circuit at the Wellington Straight, which lies just after the first sequence of corners. In a huge stroke of fortune, by the time the cars reached that part of the track, they had already started to slow dramatically for red flags shown after a multi-car pile-up at Turn 1. The group known as Just Stop Oil claimed responsibility. They are a group of environmental activists. Just Stop Oil, the same group who tied themselves to a Goodison's goalpost during Everton's 1-0 win over Newcastle United in the English Premier League, and were responsible for a stunt at the London Art Gallery last week, when two protesters glued themselves to the frame of a Vincent van Gogh painting. A statement on the Just Stop Oil website, juststopoil.org, said the protesters were demanding an immediate halt to new oil and gas projects in the United Kingdom. They demanded that the British government calls an immediate halt to new oil and gas projects in the UK, and warned they would continue to disrupt sports, cultural events, and oil until this demand is met. McKechnie said, "I'm in resistance because I cannot stand by while our government licenses new oil and gas projects. Our addiction to oil has brought us to the brink of catastrophe." The protesters were dragged away by marshals as drivers sped by, with Northamptonshire Police later on confirming 7 arrests had been made before the race resumed after a 50-minute delay. Formula One's governing body, the FIA, said that they had removed the group from the circuit, with police announcing a number of arrests had been made. "We confirmed that after the red flag, several people attempted to enter the track," an FIA statement reported. "These people were immediately removed, and the matter is now being dealt with by the local authorities." The arrested protesters were David Baldwin, age 46 of Stonesfield, Whitney, Emily Brocklebank, age 24 of Yeadon, Leeds, Alasdair Gibson, age 21, Lewis McKechnie, age 21 of London, Bethany Moggy, age 40 of St Albans, Hertfordshire, and Joshua Smith, age 25 of Manchester, have all been charged with the conspiracy to cause public nuisance. Northamptonshire Police Chief Inspector Tom Thompson said the protesters put their lives at risk. "I'm really disappointed that this group of people ignored our warnings prior to race day and made the hazardous decision to enter the track," he said. "We offered to facilitate a peaceful event at the circuit, but they instead chose to put the lives of the drivers, marshals, and volunteers at risk. It is incredibly disappointing that anyone would make the decision to do this. Thankfully, we had plans in place for an eventuality such as this, and the group was swiftly removed and arrested by our officers. All 7 are currently in custody, where their details are being ascertained." With some 142,000 spectators descending on the circuit, which is 90 minutes outside London, the race is one of the British summer's sporting highlights. and has in the past been a magnet for protesters, with the invasions putting the lives of drivers and protesters at risk. It shares similarities with the 2003 British Grand Prix, where a radical Irish priest invaded the track and was almost hit by David Coulthard, when a man dressed in a kilt ran on the track waving a banner saying, "Read the Bible is always right." Seems the British, Bible and invasions can't be separated. British colonised countries will agree with us. 2 years ago, police arrested 4 people after protesters displayed a banner for climate action group Extinction Rebellion during the British Grand Prix. When told about the protest after the race in the press conference for the top 3 finishers, Lewis Hamilton appeared to issue support, saying jokingly, "Big up to them." But with fans reacting negatively, given that if the race had been on, the protesters would have not only risked their lives, but those of the drivers, well, he's had to clarify that. When asked to clarify his statement, the Mercedes driver said, "I love that people are fighting for the planet, and we need more people like them." Presumably, this was followed by a chat with his team, as Hamilton later published a statement on Instagram stressing that demonstrations should have been done in a safe manner. The 7-time world champion said, "As we've seen today, this is a very dangerous sport. I wasn't aware of the protests today. And while I'll always support those standing for what they believe in, it must be done safely. Please don't jump onto our race circuits to protest. We don't want to put you in harm's way." Hamilton also took to Twitter to voice his support before warning protesters of the danger. His Mercedes team commented, "Lewis was endorsing their right to protest, but not the method that they chose, which compromised their safety and that of others." Race winner Carlos Sainz also condemned the manner of the protest. A surprised Sainz said, "I thought the red flag was for that, because as soon as I came out of turn 5, I saw 3 guys running towards me," said the race winner. "I think people have the opportunity to speak out and do manifestations wherever they want because it's a right, but I don't believe jumping onto an F1 track is a good way to do it because you put yourself at risk and all the drivers," said the Ferrari driver. "I support the cause, and I think F1 is doing a great job already to try and go carbon neutral by 2030. And we are pushing in this area. We are pushing F1 and the FIA to find ways to go in this direction. I just don't believe that jumping onto an F1 track is the right way to manifest yourself and protest. You need to be a bit more careful because you could get killed and create an accident." Formula 1 CEO didn't find it funny. "Totally irresponsible," Formula 1 CEO Stefano Domenicali told Sky Sports after the race. "People can protest something by voice, but running the risk on a track, jeopardizing and having the really serious stuff for the drivers and themselves is totally stupid. This is not acceptable. You can protest whatever you want. There is freedom to speak, but this is really ridiculous." Domenicali later added in a statement, "Everyone has the right to speak out on issues, but no one has the right to put lives in danger. The actions of a small group of people today were completely irresponsible and dangerous. We thank the police for their great work, and we shouldn't be complacent about the risk this posed to the safety of the drivers, marshals, fans, and the individuals themselves. The protesters who stormed the British Grand Prix remain in police custody." The British Grand Prix was surely action-packed, and the protesters have since been arrested. Their concerns, no matter how valid they can be, we can all agree that putting others' lives at risk is not worth any activism. While the 2022 British Grand Prix may have started with horrifying scenes, but it ended with surely the best period of racing so far this season, and to the eyes of many, the best in years. We can only wait in excitement for what the Austrian Grand Prix will bring. Hopefully, no horrifying scenes will await us. This brings us to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the bell icon for notifications.